もう姉様の世話を負うだけの私じゃない。
Hello everybody, Vigo Shadow here, and today there's been a couple new Shadow Festival banners. It's been taking a little bit to get to them, but I have both of them at the moment. So there's Imperfect Swordplay Alexia, and then we have 7th member Eta. Now both of these are obviously Shadow Festival banners, and also they are revival as well. So instead of just doing like separate video on each of these banners, I'm just going to go ahead and do one. So we'll start off with Imperfect Swordplay Alexia, and then pretty much after I go into the abilities and all that, I'll just tell you, I know people are going to ask, okay, which one do I pull, which one's more worth, and, you know, I'll get into that later. But anyway, let's check out Alexia right now, and Eta with their max stats, so I'll go ahead and do that right away. Here we have power to healing boost to overheal, and here's their grouping. I might as well check out the art as well, because I usually just forget that. So this one I do like, because you could just, obviously this is like Alexia with, you know, her sword kind of like mimicking Shadow and her thoughts of Shadow in the background. That is inspiration to her, which is awesome. You got the moon shot in the background, and then that glow from the moon as well. I kind of like this art, but I feel like there's more to be filled out. There could have been, I know there's a building in the background, but then there's just a lot of sky and moon. I feel like we see that often. I'd say like 6 or 7 out of 10 for that art. Alright, anyway, let's go to Eta and check her out as well. Let us go to the max stats for her. So here we got power to healing boost to overheal, and there is the grouping. Let's check out her art now. Same thing, especially with these like first through the 7th member. For the artworks, you see a lot of this moon shot in the background, which is very fitting. But I like this one because you could just see that she's in the air. There's a bunch of the town below. There is a large amount of space being taken up by the clouds in the sky. But if we look at Eta here, we could see like a bunch of swords, like all the slime energy or the slime stuff around her, so that's pretty cool. Honestly, I'd say like probably similar, but a little bit more, since there's a little bit more fleshed out in a couple like minor details. I'd say 7.5 or 8, maybe 7.5 for the art there. Obviously, I'm more of a background person, but either way, it's still good. Alright, so now let's get into the characters, starting with Alexia. Alright, so here we have Alexia Midgar. This is what she looks like, and you can obviously see that she has some of similar clothing to what Iris wears. So that's kind of cool. Either way, let's just go check out some of her abilities right away. She is a blue tank unit as an SF, and obviously she is definitely one of the best tanks in the game. So I did want to emphasize that point, because there's a lot that she can do. I did put her in my Bushin tier list video, so it's good to see her now, so that I can just go over these more in depth and tell you why she's a pretty good unit. And then also, but like compared to like Shared Silence Epsilon 2, that event Epsilon that we've seen in the New Year's, the new one, she's also a very, very good tank. And then it's kind of a toss-up between her and Alexia, but in terms of survivability, we have Epsilon being way better, I believe. But either way, moving on, let's just get into her abilities. That's a separate rant of its own. Here's her hidden technique, Going Beyond. And what this one does is it raises defense of all allies by 15% for 10 seconds, inflicts 15% of the skill user's defense. Now this is pretty unique. It's not like 15% of attack where you see that. This is like the skill user's defense, so it's playing off of defense. Now obviously it's going to be pretty high, and if you checked out those max stats, it can kind of give you a little bit of a cue into how much damage you're going to be doing. I think that's going to be a considerable amount. Now if we awaken it, 25. for both of them, and then 200% for the defense or the HP recovery. So this is going to be very good when it's awakened, because it's going to pretty much like I want maybe a full heal, depending. It just depends on your defense. It depends on how ranked up she is. Obviously, if you're dragging in a rank 9 Alexia into like rank 14 missions, you know, it's not going to be that big of a heal. Or maybe to her, but like she'll get wiped out. You know what I mean, either way. It's a pretty considerable heal for a tank, and you can't complain with like a 3-in-1 move as well. Maybe the damage factor could be better, but this is a tank we're talking about. It's still applying like defense of all allies, which is good. Alright, next one we have Noble Mind, and this one raises your own defense by 30% for 10 seconds. That's the standard thing. A lot of tanks do have that now. Further grants ongoing HP recovery by 15% of defense for 15 seconds, and inflicts provoke on all enemies for 15 seconds. Wow, that is insane. I love these Shadow Festival units because they have these 3-in-1 moves. Not only are you healing yourself or like having ongoing HP recovery, which like, you know, I'm kind of indifferent about that. I don't like that too much, but in terms of like, I guess, survivability and like tanks in general, like just being able to be an absolute unit, it's probably good, especially when you're raising your own defense. But the biggest thing here is provoke. Having provoke on all enemies. Some of the tanks can only do provoke on one enemy, and that kind of sucks, but this one provokes all enemies, so they're going to be definitely attacking the tank, and to draw everyone's attention on the tank and to not destroy your mid lane unless they have target abilities that can reach beyond is really, really, really good, especially for PvP. And waves, especially that too. And having the boss just focus on you is really good. Or anything that attack, like pretty much anything that's going to attack mid lane. When it's awakened, you have a 5% boost on the ongoing HP recovery, which I don't think that is that much of a difference. The 40% is probably a little bit notable. It's just a 10% increase, but we probably want to see this one pushed back on the roadmap. We don't want to see this one too early. Alright, next we have Glistening Blade, and that one inflicts 300% damage on all enemies and lowers their defense by 10% for 20 seconds. Now that alone is pretty good, because we have a standard skill, like 300%. I mean, we've seen this on other attackers, on all enemies. This is attacking everybody. That's really good for a tank. If a tank can cause damage, that's, I mean, it's granted, it's standard damage, but do it on all enemies and lower their defense, that is crazy. She's already like outdoing some attackers just with that alone, in terms of that. But it also raises damage received by 10%. So you're lowering them by like a... Whoa, let's see here. I didn't even read the rest of that. Further reduces defense by 20% and raises damage received by 20% if it's red elemental. So that's very, very good, especially for like obviously bosses. That's going to be your target for red. I mean, you're going to be doing a lot of damage, or not damage, but you're going to be weakening this thing a lot. You're probably going to want to see this on the roadmap, because look at that. Well, let's see here. It's just a 10% increase on the reduces defense and damage received if it's red elemental. So you can go up to 40% lowering defense and 40% damage received. Otherwise, it's just 10% less on each, so 30% and 30%. Still really, really good. It allows your attackers to become more useful. So this tank is really, really doing a good job in providing support to attackers with that skill alone. That's a really good skill. And then now we have Imperfect Swordplay, and that reduces damage received of all allies by 15% if you're partied with 4 or more blue elemental allies, self included. So you need 3 other blue elemental, which leaves only 1 unit that you can actually have in your party to be any other element besides blue. Now with that specific percentage there, I mean, it's probably going to be worth it if you can pair it in. But like, do know that if you're having like a full blue team or a 4 blue team, somebody's going to come in with the yellow and try to, you know, destroy your teams that way. So it sucks when you're really tied to a certain element, unless you're that one element that you decide to choose. So like if they're going to choose yellow, you choose green to try to combat all the yellows they're going to probably put in. Unless that green unit's like Awakening Hour Shadow and he doesn't die, or some other green unit that's going to be really, really good and to deflect that in PvP, then yeah. But what makes this even more better is further shields. 300% of skill user's defense, and that's a very considerable shield on herself for 60 seconds if partied with 5 blue elemental allies. So obviously this is more geared towards those bosses, you know, having like full blue elemental allies. You're going to be doing a lot of damage to red bosses. Perfect choice for Armageddon. Maybe not. I know I recently did some Armageddon videos, and I'm going to be doing, well, I can't say that because I'm going to put this one on into upload, but regardless, either way, we're almost finished with our 15th Armageddon. But she's been doing pretty good at Armageddon, but when it comes to White Realm is a beast of its own. But enough with that before I get into another spiel. When it's awakened, yeah, that's a 400% shield compared to 300%. So let's just go ahead and take a look at her magic gear and normal attack, and also her combo attack, because that's also going to change with Shadow Festival units. So what you want to look at is the bottom 3 here now. So combo effect is going to be doing your standard, like, damage, reduces the damage, but then also on top of it, it's going to create, you know, another shield, 80 to 200%. So if she's last, it's going to be a 200% shield for 10 seconds. And then it inflicts 100% damage. Weak damage, that should, like, I mean, damage is damage, but still, I mean, the shield is going to be the best thing. So essentially, if your Alexia is kind of getting hit pretty bad, you might want to save her for the last, so you can just throw another shield on yourself in terms of, like, bosses, and if she's suffering pretty hard. But either way, that's the strike combo. For the normal attack, we have a 2-hit. It's actually standard, so nothing too special on the normal there. And then the linked gear. So the linked gear is raises own defense by 10%. Let's just go to max. I like to do the max. You can always upgrade it. We just want the full potential here. Raises own defense by 20% until surviving allies fall below 5. Which she should be able to do a good job of that, because she's able to provoke all the enemies and get all the attention on her with that skill of hers, so that's very, very helpful, and the fact that she has a shield. Further grants ongoing HP recovery for all blue elemental allies by 8% of defense. Permanent. Now, for this SS Magic Gear, I think it's actually pretty good. It's definitely really good for Alexia for sure, because you're putting more defense on yourself, so that you have a 20% base defense for the whole round. Or, sorry, not the whole round, until your surviving allies fall below 5, which they shouldn't. And if they are falling below 5, then obviously you need to, like, go in and rank them up, and then, or just try to have something in your team to try to keep them alive. Something that can probably create a shield of its own. I know Sherry does a good job with that, so... But Sherry wouldn't be ideal, especially for, like, red bosses, because you're going to be using blue to attack red. So you need something else to, like, kind of get in there and do some good heals. If you have SF Gamma, of course, that'd be good. But either way, I think the ongoing HP recovery is gonna help for, like, at least a little bit, and then it's gonna double dip into Alexia's skill, because she also puts HP recovery on herself as well. So that's gonna just keep recovering her health even more, making her survive a bit longer, and actually receiving some heals when it's not a direct heal. So that's pretty good, I'd say. And it also gives the chance for the healer to heal other members besides the tank, if they have a one heal or all heal, you know, it just depends. Now let's go ahead and check out her Awakening roadmap. So first we have Glistening Blade, and I think that one's not bad because, yeah, this was the extra 10%. So I think that's probably a better one compared to the others. Yeah, so Noble Mind we wanted to see kind of, or actually Noble Mind is pretty good, actually. I think I was harping on it a little bit. But that defense by 10% is actually going to be pretty good, because you want to have as much damage reduction as you can as a tank, so I guess Noble Mind isn't too bad. We have then the Imperfect Swordplay, which is doing a 400% shield. That's probably something you'd want to see earlier, so A3 is going to be very good with that, especially if you're running full blue. Magic Gear slotted A4. And, of course, the best one, raises defense of all allies by 25%, and inflicts the 25% of the skill user's defense, and then recovers own HP by 400%. So it does a lot for your kind of like your self-preservation, or not self-preservation, but like a little bit, because you're recovering, you're also raising defense, and then you're inflicting damage. So you're doing 3 things at once. You're being a support in 2 ways. Or, sorry, you're being a support to your allies, you're healing yourself, and you're damaging the enemy. That's crazy. That's crazy that she has all these, like, different abilities to throw into the mix. So with that being said, she does a lot of things that, like, obviously some standard characters can do, like raises her own defense, but of course it comes with more. All these abilities are 3-in-1s or beyond, which is absolutely crazy, and that's what makes her such a good tank, because she can buff her defense so far up there. Her Magic Gear adds 20% more on the base, HP recovery, and then she's able to buff her allies in more ways than one. First, with the Magic Gear, she can have them all heal consistently, ongoing HP recovery, and then she also, takes the heat by provoking all the enemies, which is good. You want provoke on a tank. That's definitely what you want. She can create a shield on herself. She reduces the damage of her allies. And then, raises defense of all allies. She is definitely a very, very good tank for survivability, support, and doing a little bit of damage. I'd say more than most tanks in terms of damage. In terms of damage. So that's actually very, very good for Alexia. She's a really good SF to pick up, but let's just compare her to Eta. So, alright, now we'll move on to Eta then. Alright, so here we have 7th member Eta. So I can't say I pulled this one because I did not pull this one. I actually pitied this unit on my first live stream for Armageddon. I decided to do my mid-armor pulls, and it backfired very heavily because I had to pity her, and I also got her weapon. Enough of my sub story. Let's actually go into the skills of this unit and why I decided to pity for this one specifically. So let's check out Experiment Frenzy, and with this one it does inflict slow on all enemies for 10 seconds. Crucial, is able to stop bosses from ulting as much, and I guess inherently makes your team. It's not going to make your team quicker, but it's definitely going to stunt other enemies in terms of causing damage. And 10 seconds is pretty considerable. Also lowers their defense by 20% for 10 seconds, and further inflicts 1,200% damage. So obviously the damage factor is not good here, but it's made up for with the lowering of defense and the slow, which is going to be really good. So when this one's awakened, we have actually a pretty good boost for the lowering defense, 15% additional. So it's 35%, lowers the defense by 35% for 10 seconds, and inflicts 1,500% damage. This is pretty standard damage as far in terms of like an ultimate. Like, we're talking very standards, so the damage is, I'd say okay at best. The main thing is that you're lowering their defense by this amount. And then, obviously, the slow on all enemies is a very good touch. You're going to want that. And then next, we have one of her moves here, which is Fiend Blow. And what this one does is it inflicts seal on a single enemy. If it's bosses, it's always going to be that enemy, which is nice, with the highest attack for 7 seconds. Also reduces the SP by 200%. So that's actually going to be really good, especially when you have crazy bosses being able to throw out their ult like 5, 6, 7, 8 times. I've seen that actually a couple times. Maybe not to the magnitude of 8, but there's been a lot of bosses that have been very annoying with their hidden technique. Casting it out multiple times and killing my team over time with how many times it activates. So that's going to be really good on bosses because it's going to seal them up, so they're not going to be able to do some of their skills there. And also the reducing of SP. The damage, however, you might as well just not say it's there. It's just like pretty much if you were to normal hit twice, so why even include it? Damage is damage, but yeah. The Awakened, however, it doesn't change the damage factor, which is not good, but still. Either way, what you're getting out of this is 3 more seconds of the seal, which is actually pretty good. And then you're reducing the SP by 100 more, which is nice. And that's just a regular skill, so you're going to be able to reduce the SP and seal them on a regular skill, so you could potentially be like reducing their SP quite a bit. So that's actually really good for bosses, for sure. Next we have Mud Trap. And this is another one that inflicts slow on all enemies for 7 seconds. That is just so crucial. You have a slow move on the regular skill that it targets all enemies, and then you have another one on top of that with your hidden technique. So obviously you're going to be casting slow quite a bit, which is nice, and then lowering their SP. So obviously this type of unit is a status inflictor, which is probably going to be good to if you pair with like people that play off of like status affliction as well. It also inflicts dark for 5 seconds, which is I guess it's like hit and miss. No pun intended there, because you know, dark will potentially have the enemy miss some of their attacks, which could be very, very, very good actually. Especially if they're missing attacks, but more importantly, if they hurt. So I find a lot of bosses in Eminence, even during like Armas, like really easy. If we're talking about like Realm or like World bosses, then it really shines through in terms of like trying to not get hit and or reduce damage. But this is not about reducing damage. This is just a bunch of status afflictions. So having the enemies potentially miss with that dark for 5 seconds is still pretty good. But what's better is the slow, and then further lowers the attack by 20% for 10 seconds. So obviously this is a huge debuff on the enemies, on all enemies in fact, which is absolutely crazy. Which is going to then make it very good for PvP if you're casting slow on all enemies, because again, with PvP, speed is so crucial, so when you're inflicting slow on all enemies, that's going to do some wonders. Let me just tell you that right there. When this is awakened, this goes from slow from 7 to 10 seconds. A 3-second increase. I wish it would increase the dark for a little bit more, instead of just keeping that the same. But it also lowers their attack by a whole 10% more, which is pretty good still. You know, you're going to want that specific percentage to go up. Absolutely. And then next, her final skill here, which is 7th Member. At 30 seconds after the start of the wave, raises damage received for all enemies by 15% for 30 seconds, which is the rest of the wave. Really good. All enemies, in fact, are targeted after this, but I guess in PvP you're probably not going to see that as much unless you're able to survive out after the 30 seconds, but by then people are going to be dead. Enemy team's going to have some units, both teams are going to have at least like some units missing or like come very close. It could prove to be very useful in terms of like clutching the round last second, probably. And then it further cancels 3 buff effects, so that's going to be very good on the enemies. Like I said, this could probably come in clutch if you just barely make it over that 30 seconds. The enemy team's got a lot of buffs. You remove 3 of the buffs, and then they're taking more damage, so you might get the edge on after that 30 seconds, which could be really good. In terms of like fighting bosses, this is very, very great, because then, you know, it's permanent. 30 seconds after the wave, they're going to be taking 15% more damage for damage received. That is awesome. We like that. Now let's see what it looks like awakened. Only a 5% increase, which I wish it was a little bit more than that, but still, either way, 20% damage received and cancels 5 buff effects. Obviously there's some bosses that have a lot of buff effects, and taking them down is very, very satisfying. So yeah, all in all, this is the type of unit that is, let me just tell you, terrible. Terrible with attack. So if you're looking for a yellow attacking unit that is specifically good with attack, this is not it. This unit is pretty much everything else besides attack. You're going to want other members to pick up the slack. Eta is going to need people to be very good attackers. So you're going to want a different SF. You're going to want SF Alpha coming in with that speed and that increased attack. And then this could be a very good pairing because she's able to do a lot to stunt the other enemies in terms of like doing their ultimate, sealing them up, casting dark on them. She's inflicting so many different status ailments on all these enemies. She is a definite status afflictor, and this is probably the best version of status affliction we see. Besides maybe bleed, but bleed is also nerfed. Either way, slow is probably the best thing in her toolkit, which is awesome, and then she's lowering the attack by a bunch. She's not only doing attack, but she's also doing damage received, and then also, you know, reducing the SP. And then with her ultimate, it's going to be good because you're going to be doing her ultimate, lowering their defense, and then if that also procs with, what is it? Yeah, if you do this ultimate 30 seconds after the wave, damage received is by 15%, or 20 if you have it awakened. And then you can also lower their defense even more, so that opens up after the 30 seconds of the wave. You can have your other attackers come in with their hidden techniques and do a massive amount of damage. She is very good with her status affliction, and that is why I decided to pity her for yellow team. So obviously I have Victoria, so that's going to help me do a lot of damage on that front. She is actually a very, very good unit to have for yellow teams, since she's able to do a lot of damage with what she does. So there's that. Oh wait, that's effect 1. This is effect 2. Really good, really good. So we went over all her skills, right? Strike combo. Her strike combo is able to lower the defense by 10% for 10 seconds. Now let me go in here because I forgot to do the roadmap and everything else. And her gear, so this could be a make or break, right? So her normal attack is just normal. And then here's her linked gear, right? So 30 seconds after the start of the wave raises the SP discount rate for all yellow elemental allies by 40%. So you're gonna have your yellow units be able to pull off essentially maybe even 2 hidden techniques, which is very, very good. And if you're very, very lucky, maybe 3, especially if you have like other units that can give SP to others or discount it. So obviously that magic gear is pretty good, especially if you're able to get 2 hidden techniques in. That's just that much more damage, very crucial. So that magic gear alone is also going to take that character probably up a whole tier. If we're talking about tier lists, the magic gear probably brings it up by a whole tier due to the fact that you're probably going to throw out another hidden technique, whereas in most case scenarios you won't. Now let's go into the Awakening roadmap. We have Fiend Blow, which is reducing the SP by 100 more and the damage by 100 more. Or the damage by 100% more. So this one's not... It's actually pretty good because if you're going to be lowering the boss's SP, that's nice. We want to avoid getting hit by that. Even in Armageddon, like just lowering their SP by a little bit amount, or a little bit, so you just don't get hit by a hidden technique and waste like, even if it's like a couple seconds, that's really good. Then we have 7th member, so her A2 is actually very notable here, because she's canceling 2 more buffs and then 5%, it's only 5% more I think, on the damage received, but still, that's better because you're having damage received 20% 30 seconds after the wave. Still decent. Her A2 is pretty good. Mud Trap is going to be the 10% increase on lowering their attack, which is not bad, and then it also has the 3 more seconds of slow, still crucial. I say Mud Trap's pretty mid. A4 is the Magic Gear slot, and then tucked away we have the Hidden Technique, which is going to be probably one of the best things on her kit because you're going to be doing a little bit more damage to make it actually standard. So standard is still pretty, or damage is still pretty mid on her Hidden Technique, but that lowering of the defense for 35% in conjunction with this not the mud trap, the 7th member at her A2. Having A2 and or obviously A5 all the way up to A5, you're going to be able to lower the damage or lower their defense by a good sum. Like we're talking like probably like 50%. Well, obviously 20% more damage received, 35% more defense lowered, which is going to make your other yellow attackers hit pretty damn hard if this one's A5. So obviously A2 is very notable, A3 is kind of mid, and A5 is definitely really, really good because of that hidden technique. You're going to want to see that. Okay, that covers everything on Ida's kit there, so let me just go into the should you pull for either Imperfect Swordplay Alexia or 7th member Ida. Obviously, these are both Shadow Festival banners, and they're obviously with those banners, they're really good. And what I'm gonna have to say to you for like either or, like which one should I go for? Should I go for Alexia or should I go for Ida? It all obviously it just depends on your team composition. On my live stream, I actually did not get lucky, so I had to pity Ida, and on top of that, on top of the pity, so this is beyond 56,000 gems. I had to get her magic gear too, which is like, 3 more multis. So we're talking 23 multis I had to pour into this unit, which is a big L I had to suffer for my main account. As you can see, I was up to 90k gems, and now I'm down to 28k for the gem count. So I have to pass on a lot of probably good banners coming up in order to secure myself for the pity. So obviously, you know, you can get nothing out of it. So if you don't have like a large sum of gems, or like if you're trying to just gamble it, it depends on your strategy really. But would it be worth to pity for these two is the better question, or worth to pull. Obviously with Ida, if you're looking, it just depends on what you're gonna want to do. With yellow teams, if you're looking for more damage and you don't have a lot of good damage on your yellow teams, and you're kind of looking for this attacker to be, or this SF to be that type of attacker, you're looking in the wrong place, because her whole kit is status affliction and it's not damage. She sets up the other units for damage way better. So if you got Victoria, that's going to be a good pairing because it's going to allow her to do a lot more damage at the near the end of the wave. And then obviously after her ultimate, because here's what you're going to want to do with Ida. You're going to want to use Ida's ult so that it lowers their defense, and then use all the other attackers' ults so that you can get more damage out of that ult as well. And of course the magic gear is going to help with that as well. So she's really good in that aspect in terms for buffing up the other attackers, and also putting a bunch of status affliction on the enemies, including one of the best ones, which is slow. So she's really good for that in her kit. So it depends. If you have other good yellow units that are attackers that are pretty good, she's actually a very, very good pickup if you have other yellow units to back her up. If you don't, pass. Now for Alexia, obviously you might have first of the 7 for Alpha, which is a good blue tank, but obviously she's going to get outclassed by Alexia along with every other blue tank, because this Alexia is able to do so much more, especially with her 3-on-1 like abilities for each. The fact that she's able to create a shield for herself, have ongoing HP for the whole team, as well as buffing the whole team's defense, including her own, and then causing a little bit of damage, probably more than standard tanks, for the enemies is also very good. And yeah, like she's just an all-round, she's like one of the top tier tanks. So Alexia is probably one of the better pickup of the two. Or I shouldn't say that. It depends on what your team comp looks like. Obviously, if you have first the 7 Alpha, or not first the 7, first member Alpha for yellow teams, and you're choosing Ida along with Victoria or somebody that can do high attacking damage, this is the better pickup for you for sure. And if you're lacking on your blue team in terms of survivability, which like you should only be suffering survivability and like getting hurt a lot from like either World Tree, certain bosses, event bosses, stuff like that, that's where Alexia can come in and then be a very good tank and support. So she's obviously a top tier tank. I know I've been rambling a lot, but this is actually a very these two banners are very tricky. So yeah, if your blue team needs a little bit more work and they are dying pretty consistently, Alexia is a very, very good pickup, and you can't go wrong with it because she will be a solid staple tank for your blue teams for a long time. A lot of members in a bunch of different guilds use her for PvP, for bosses, especially. World Tree, she's a very good unit. Eta, also a very good unit, but she's going to need some backup from the other yellow attackers. So that's all I have to say to that. Yeah, Vigo, signing off.